Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of South Bay Sports Radio. Today, I'm joined by legendary South Bay wrestling coach Don Garriott. Coach, thank you for joining me.
Thanks so much for having me. I don't know about the legendary part, but I am coaching at South now. So
All right, well, let's begin with your earliest memories of wrestling.
my earliest memories of wrestling are horrible. I grew up in Oregon and we had really good PE in Oregon, at least at that time, back in the late 70s, early 80s, and you did a little bit of everything throughout your PE. And one of the sections was wrestling. And I had never wrestled before, didn't know much about it. And it was like a 6-week session. And I remember like the first 2 weeks were so bad. I was getting beat up by everybody so bad that I started hiding in the showers when everybody would change to go down to the room. I started hiding in the showers, and it was an indoor school. But, not like the California schools. All our schools up there are indoors. So I'd hide in the showers, everybody would leave, and then I would leave and I would go walk around, and I'd usually end up down in the art room. We had a really cool art teacher. So I'd hang out down in his room and stuff. And eventually the PE teacher started figuring out and started waiting for me. And then he started walking me down. And so first 2 weeks were horrible. The next 2 weeks weren't much better. Something clicked. And in the last 2 weeks, I don't know if it was just I figured out the leverage or the physics of it, but then all of a sudden I started beating all these people that were beating me and enjoying it. And by the end, they have a little tournament and I won the tournament. And then he asked me to come out for the team. And that's how it started. So instead of going out for basketball that year, like I had every other year, which I was horrible at, I went, I went out for wrestling. And the first year I won the district championships. And then the next year I won the state championships in 8th grade. So
You moved down to California and you attend Redondo to start high school before spending your senior year at West. What would best describe your prep career as a student athlete?
um, again, before I came here, we had the wrestling in junior high school and stuff. Here, they don't have that. It's mostly, club stuff until you get to high school. Um, so I still didn't know a lot about wrestling. I had a couple moves. I was kind of strong for my size, and so really my prep career, I think, was really kind of a discovery journey for me. I started at Redondo High School because that's kind of where we lived, and we had a great coach there my first 2 years. Guy by the name of Les Congealier. He's a South Bay guy. He was an athletic director at Redondo. He's a football coach at Harbor, and he was just a good coach. No matter what sport he was coaching, he was a good coach. And after my sophomore year, Les had been offered the job at Harbor for the football program at Harbor College. But he had told me, hey, I'm still going to coach wrestling here because he was still teaching on Redondo's campus, but was going to be an off campus football coach, and told me he was going to stay coaching wrestling at Redondo, which I think 100% he felt he was going to do. I think he probably got it now being older and coaching at college. He probably got into that college job, found out it was more than he thought it was going to be, and couldn't coach, might come my junior year. And so we ended up with another guy, really nice guy, not a great coach, but a really nice guy. And I just didn't think that I was going to reach my potential there in that circumstance. And West had a really good program. We had already moved over to the West High area. And I was still going to Redondo. So it was an easy transfer. I had friends at West, and, I ended up going there. And Kent Wyatt was my coach there, who was probably, he's one of the most phenomenal coaches I've ever been around as far as breaking down technique, teaching you how to not change you, but use what you do and use your body and in a way that benefits you. And that's where I really think I started figuring out, hey, I can really do this. I think I can do this at a high level. And had a great senior year there and placed in the state meet. And that kind of fueled my not so much my passion, but just my belief in, hey, I think you can do this, and this can be a part of your life. So
Um, what weight classes did you wrestle in?
so I started my freshman year, I was at 115. Then sophomore year I went up to 122. And then my junior year, I was at 126. And then my senior year, I wrestled most of the year at 34. And then near the end, middle of the end, I came down to 26 again. We uh we had a wrestler in our area that was pretty phenomenal, Lawrence Jackson. He was a 3-time state champ, and he was in our league, and he was at 34s, and I wasn't cutting very hard for 34s, so I thought it might be a better idea to go down to 26 and make my own way and stay out of his.
Um, After high school, you wrestled El Camino before moving on to Chico State. How would you describe life after high school?
So it, life after high school. So at the end of my high school year, my senior year, I met my girlfriend, who's now my wife. We started dating, and honestly, she's probably at that point the first person that came along that I kind of enjoyed being with more than I did wrestling sometimes. And so my first year at El Camino was a lot of me, we took all the same classes together. She did my schedule. So we just would spend a lot of time together. And, I never missed practice or anything like that, but I don't know if my head was where it should have been. So I kind of struggled in the beginning at El Camino. Um, I mean, like I said, high school, my senior year, I was CIF champ. I was fourth in the state. I go to El Camino. I'm thinking I'm going to do great things, and I lost my first 7 matches. 5 of them I got pinned, and a couple of them were guys that I had beaten before. They were a little bit older than me, but I had beaten them before, and I was I was kind of devastated. I remember the last time I lost, it was a dual meet, and I went outside and I got upset. I was kicking the trash can, throwing a fit, things like that. And my dad had came out, and my dad is probably the most mild mannered, or he's passed away now, but was probably one of the gentlest, most mild mannered men around. And I remember he came out, and I was cursing, yelling, screw this sport. I quit. I'm quitting. I'm not wrestling. And I remember he kind of grabbed me and he slapped me, which he had never done before. And he looked me in the eyes and he said, "You can quit when the season's done. You decide how you want your season to go, but you can quit when it's done." And I went home and I started to kind of think about, okay, why are things not going the way they should be? I know a lot of it was the time I was putting into it. So I started coming in at 6 a.m. and lifting and doing some different things. And I didn't lose another match until the semifinals of state that year. But I really needed a readjustment. And that little slap from my dad, who never raised a hand to me before, was it what I needed.
You begin coaching when you were 23 at North Torrance in 1991. What do you remember about that first season?
I mean, that was a big year all around. I had just finished up at Chico the year before. Um, Came home that summer, got married to Deanne, who's my wife. So I got married at 23 also. Took the head coaching job at North. I was supposed to take over at West. And actually, Wyatt wasn't happy with me for about a year after that. I don't know if he even talked to me for a year, even though we were in the same league. But I was supposed to take over at West, go help him for a while, and then take over. But, it had already had such a strong program that I wanted to know if I could coach. And so I kind of chose the lowest program in the area. Also, the thing too is if I went there and screwed up, who's going to know, right? So I kind of took the lowest program in the area and to see what I could do. And that first year it was just learning. It was almost like that first year of wrestling again. It was just learning. Like there's so much in paperwork. There's so much in scheduling. There's so much in practice planning. There's so much in learning how to connect with kids, because you could do all that, be great at those other things. And if you don't know how to connect with kids, it's going to be useless as far as trying to build a successful program. So that was all really a learning year. And I have a lot of mentors. I have a lot of people that I reach out to, that are older, that coached and wrestled. And, I just took everything from everybody I could, and I took all the good things from all the coaches I've had in the past and tried to put them all together. And that's kind of how I built, what we've done in over these last, 30 some years. So. But I will tell you, it was a pretty ragtag group I had that first year. They were, I remember we were wrestling Peninsula in the dual meet, and I only had one other coach coaching me, so we kind of had to coach all the levels. And I remember we had just coached the varsity, and we'd gotten beat up by Peninsula, and then the JV was out. And I remember, the varsity had left to go shower or whatever, and I'm coaching the JV, and all of a sudden, a couple of the Peninsula kids came running out, and they had blood kind of streaming down their faces. And I guess my varsity team had cornered them in the bathroom in the locker room, and we lost the dual meet, so they thought they'd win the fight. And yeah, it was a pretty ragtag, rough group, but it was definitely a group you could build with because they had so much fight in them. They just had no direction.
You name a pair of former coaches, of course, Wes Ken Wyatt and El Camino's Tom Hazel as
Mhm.
mentors. What are some things that you learned from those two that have been invaluable to you?
Well, I mean, there's also Andy Harris, who was a coach at Torrance for many years, and Mike Liebig also, and just from Kent, I learned technique and how to break technique and how to teach technique, modify technique. He was just a master at that. And I took that from him, and his training styles. He was, he trained very hard himself when he was a wrestler, and he instilled that in us. I think from Tom, uh, I learned how to do the administrative part of it. Tom was very big. He ran huge tournaments and fundraisers and all sorts of stuff. He was always really good at promotions and things like that. And so I think I was able to take that from him, which helps build a program. If you can run these events and things like that. Um, Andy Harris, it was about relating with kids. I mean, he could relate to any kid. And he basically told me, if you put a mirror under their nose and there's fog on it, take them. Take any kid you can. It might not work out, but take any kid you can and see what you can do. And that's why we've always been able to build large programs, is because we'll take any kid. We're going to give any kid a chance, and probably multiple chances, and see what we can do with them, see what we can make of them. So yeah, a lot of those guys just anything I thought that they did well, I tried to steal.
Imitation is the biggest form of flattery.
And you know what? It's the biggest form of success. I mean, if you imitate people that are successful, you're going to be successful. If you can imitate them properly.
True. I asked you to name a memorable match that still stands out among all the matches, and you gave me the 2022 CIF dual finals that put South Torrance against Milliken. Walk me back through not just that match, but that season.
Yeah, so I think that was the year we weren't supposed to win. I mean, we were ranked behind them all year, and at tournaments and stuff, you could tell they were just placing more kids. We were in a rebuilding year because we had beat them the year before pretty solid, but our group was mostly seniors, and it was a group that I'm pretty sure that was the COVID year, the year that we got to compete right after COVID. Um, that was the group that we had raised them since they were like 9 years old in our kids club. My oldest son, all his friends had wrestled since they were 9 and 10. And that was their senior year. That was going to be our biggest year. And we ended up only just getting dual meets and then the dual CIF. And we beat Milliken in the finals there. And then that cupboard kind of went bare, not completely bare. We still had some good guys, but very inexperienced guys that hadn't been in the varsity lineup before. And we were behind Milliken all year. Um, and going into the duels, we were just so happy to make the final, and we were going to get another plaque and it's probably going to be runner up, but we were happy we got there. And things just happened in that match, crazy things. And we ended up putting ourselves in a position to win it. And then those last, once we saw those last couple guys and we were in that position, everything had to fall in line, and it did. And each guy did their job, and we ended up winning. And it was really surreal. It might have been the most surreal match I've ever had, because most matches I can tell if we're going to win or not. I'm not surprised very often. And this time everybody in that gym was surprised. So it was pretty sweet.
you had the opportunity to coach both of your sons on CIF title winning teams. How would you describe watching them succeed on that stage, not just as a coach, but as a father?
Um, it's great. I love coaching my boys. I always have. We don't have any problem with it. I've coached for so many years. I've watched so many dad son combinations, and I've seen some really amazing relationships, and I've seen some really horrible ones. And I always knew I wanted the amazing one. And so, you know, it, being able to be a part of their journey in such an integral way, more than just being their dad, but also being their coach, has always been, really extra rewarding for me. So, and then they're both so different. Both of my kids are so different as human beings, and they're also both so different in the sport. The way they approach the sport and stuff. So, I had to navigate it. I have to navigate it differently with both of them. Which definitely, you have to put a lot of thought into it, and find the buttons that push each one of them and try to get the most out of them. So it's amazing. I mean, coaching your own kids when you can do it and everyone's happy is pretty special.
Wrestling is one of the more underrated high school sports. What is your pitch to someone on the fence about getting involved in the sport?
Um, it's funny because there is that in the beginning, but once we start having success, we don't have problems getting kids out. Like this, we run 3 practices right now because we have 3 different groups because our program's so big. And at North, it was the same way. I think at one point at North, we had like 120 kids in the program, which was bigger than the football team. I think we're bigger than the football team right now at South. I think we have 109 or 110 kids in the program right now. So, in the beginning, there is those pitches you have to make because, one, it's not something most kids in California did growing up. 2, they have that whole boys touching boys thing, you know, uh, I don't know if they're just scared of the actual competition and they use that, or if they feel that way, but that is always something we have to overcome. The singlet, most of them in the beginning don't want to wear the singlet. After 2 years, I can't get them out of the singlet. They wear it under their clothes to school and stuff, right? So it's just those little hurdles. And being a young coach, I had to figure that out. Now I know it's not a problem. I know how to get over those hurdles. So, I mean, I would mostly go into PE classes. I would take a day off work, and they would send all the PE classes to me, all the freshman PE classes to me in the wrestling room. And I had a video of like wrestling highlights to make it look exciting, some testimonials, and just my spiel about, what I feel wrestling does for people. And as much of a spiel as it is, I think it works because it's heartfelt. I really believe what I'm saying. I feel this sport, you know, is different than most sports, especially team sports. Although there's a team component to it, there's such an individual component to it that is so exposed. Every sport, there's individual components, but they're not as exposed as we are. You're out there by yourself, in a gym, in a center of a mat, and you're fighting another human being. You're trying to control another human being. And wrestling not only builds character, it absolutely builds character, but more than that, it exposes character, because you're just put in situations that most young people aren't put in normally. And you're put in those situations weekly, week after week after week. And it makes a person really look inside themselves. If you're losing and stuff, you got to look inside. Why am I losing? I'm in a good program. Why am I losing? Am I not doing the right things? Do I not have confidence in myself? Those types of things. And I think that the more young people get to do that at an earlier age, the more balanced and successful and tools they're going to have as they get older. And that's what I relay to people, man. I always tell my kids, you are going to have an advantage over your peers in your adult life because you know how to work hard, you know how to sacrifice, and you're not afraid to put it on the line. And that's what I believe. And that's what I preach while I'm trying to get them out for the team, and the entire time they're wrestling in the program is, whether you win or lose, all of this is going to pay off in the long run.
You've been at this for over 30 years. What's something that keeps you coming back year after year?
So it's funny you ask that because I'm at the end right now. I don't got a lot of gas left. I love the sport. I haven't had a season off, not one season off since I was 11 years old. And I'm right at 57 right now. So for what is that, 46 years, I have not had one season off. But I'm getting there. I'm getting a little burnt. Not that I don't love and enjoy the sport. It's the time. You know, I coach at Cerritos College. I've been there 20 years. I just stepped down this year after the end of season as the head coach there. I'm going to assist there for 2 years, helping with the transition, and then I'll be done there. I'm coaching at South also. Our seasons are different, so I can afford to coach at both. I'm coaching at South now, and I'm pretty much just going to finish Caden out, you know, wherever he decides, if he decides to stay at South or if he decides to transfer somewhere. I'm finishing out, and then I'll be done coaching. And the greatest joy I get out of it right now, I'll answer that in two ways, because before I got old and tired, what brought me back was there's so many things that bring you back. It's such an addiction, and it feeds an addiction. Watching these kids develop, especially these kids that never wrestled before, they come out as freshmen, and it is so ugly, man. Watching these kids that never took the map for is so ugly. But then all of a sudden, you're watching them their junior and senior year, placing in CIF, qualifying for state. Like, I don't feel like you see as big a transition in other sports, because kids grow up playing a lot of those other sports. So seeing that transition is just, it's addicting, winning is addicting also. So it's nice when you're doing that regularly. I mean, if I hadn't had as much success with the groups of kids I had, I don't know that it would have been as enjoyable, but wrestling's given me everything in my life, man. If I didn't transfer to West my senior year, I don't have the wife I have. That's where I met her. Maybe I don't have the kids I have, the job I have. I was going to do construction, and then I wanted to coach. So my wife said, hey, go back and get a degree that you can, actually make a living coaching doing. And so that's what I went and did. So, so for me, it was just a passion, a love for this sport that has been with me since I was 11. Now it's Caden. It's my youngest, and that's the joy I get out of this, is watching him do his thing now. And that's enough to get me through these next couple years. And then I just want to travel and spend time with my wife. So.
There you go. How do you want your legacy to be remembered?
I don't know. I mean, that's such a hard question. And when you talk about legacy, I don't know. I mean, do I have a legacy? The one thing I've learned, especially coaching at North, and I was there 18 years, and we won like 4 CIF championships there, and we were like runners up like 8-9 times there. So, but once you leave after a year or two, those buildings, and all the people are different. Those buildings don't remember you. So I think my legacy is going to lie in the kids I've coached, and what they remember about me. And I think that's what I want my legacy to be. I don't really care if people know we won championships or we did this, or they put up banners. That's not it, man. When God comes and gets me and they lay me in the ground, I want people to say good things at my funeral about me, that I was a positive influence in their life. If enough people can do that, that's my legacy.
It's a pretty good darn legacy. That will wrap up the serious part of this episode. We are going to transfer into rapid fire. 5 questions. Your answers are your own. Your all-time favorite NFL players?
Herschel Walker, Larry Fitzgerald, and I think Saquon Barkley right now.
He's a beast. One NFL franchise has to go.
Raiders.
No, what the Raiders?
Sorry.
I'm not a Raider fan.
Oh, you had the black LA Kings hat on, so I didn't know.
I'm all Kings.
All right.
Your favorite professional wrestlers?
Oh, man. Going back, Jimmy the Superfly Snuka, for sure. You got to love Stone Cold. Hulk Hogan. I mean, those guys really were in the heyday of WWE. But yeah, Jimmy Superfly Snuka for sure. I used to watch him when I was a little kid, when they had the regional shows, and he would always be on the Portland Wrestling Network or something. Him and a guy named Dutch Savage were tag team partners. So yeah, it's Jimmy Superfly for sure.
Let's go top 3 sports movies.
Top 3 sports movies. Ah, top 3 sports movies. There's so many sports movies. Remember the Titans. Um, oh, what's that one? Oh, any given Sunday, and then probably Vision Quest.
I don't know the last one, but I'm gonna have to look at it.
Vision Quest is probably the best wrestling movie ever.
Your favorite South Bay eatery and your go-to dish there.
Oh, favorite South Bay eatery. I like keep it simple. I like Mongol King. It's kind of my comfort food. If my stomach's not feeling good or something like that. That Mongolian barbecue always hits just right.
Beautiful. Coach, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much. And I look forward to talking with you more in the future.
Yeah, thanks so much, man.
Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to follow along and share these episodes with your family and friends. Until the next episode, South Bay Sports Guy signing off. Have a great day.
Means that do it. Burger.